Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us out of your very busy schedules. We now would like to start the 21st CSIS Nikkei Symposium, Shaping the Future, New Leadership in Japan, the US, and Next Indo-Pacific Order. The symposium is conducted in a hybrid method with in-person meeting and live broadcasting in English. In some of the sessions, we will be entertaining questions to the presenters through the screen. Type in the questions and the Q&A section shown either on the down right or on the bottom. Depending on the proceedings, some of your questions might be adopted, so please jot down your questions. When there are many questions, only the limited number of questions can be adopted. We would like to ask for your kind understanding. Now, we would like to invite Dr. John Hamre, President and CEO of CSIS, former Deputy Secretary of Defense, to extend his opening remarks. Dr. Hamre, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you all. It's such an honor to come to the Nikkei CSIS Security Forum. This is the 21st forum that we've hosted together, and I'm just very honored and flattered to be here today. I will tell you, because of scheduling problem, I landed at Haneda at 5:30 this morning, okay? And so I apologize if I look pretty sleepy. But it tells you how anxious I was to come to Tokyo. But it also tells you how anxious I was to leave America. So let me talk about that just for a minute. This forum, I'm so proud of what we've been able to do together with Nikkei. Because this forum has been the strongest place where we talk about our joint responsibilities to make Asia and the world safer, stronger, more prosperous. And I feel it's been a major contributor to that. And so I'm very grateful that everybody is here. You've had a significant election here, and you're going through a different phase of your election, your politics. We've had a very different election in Washington, and it's raising a lot of questions about it. So I want to share with you some of my thoughts about that. First, President Trump won very compellingly. He won not only the Electoral College, but he had more than 6 million votes more than Kamala Harris. It was really a resounding victory for President Trump. And the question that I would like to explore today is, does his election represent the end of a 75-year period of American leadership on the international stage? Because I think that's really what's a bit at question here. It was 75 years ago, roughly, that two American presidents, President Truman and President Eisenhower, made the case for Americans that we needed to be actively involved in the world stage for our security and for the betterment of the rest of humanity. And I think it was an astoundingly important thing. If you go back 75 years, back then there were only 2 billion people on the planet. Today there are 8 billion people on the planet. 75 years ago, 70% of all humanity lived in abject poverty. Complete poverty 75 years ago. Today that's only 7%. So in the last 75 years, the world has seen a quadrupling of population, but we've cut poverty by 90%. And it's an astounding accomplishment. And it's an astounding accomplishment because we worked with countries like Japan as a vital partner to help create this international structure that we know today. And the question is going to be, is that still America's priority? I read President Trump. I didn't read his campaign platform, before he was elected, but I thought I better read it after he got elected. Okay? And so I dug out his platform and I studied it. And, there's very little reference to allies in the platform. Where it does speak about allies, it says we're going to strengthen alliances by making allies pay their fair share of the burden of the alliance. I think that's really more directed at NATO and Europe, but it's not something that is probably going to be Japan can avoid, so that's part of it. When he talks about the military, he only talks about the military when it comes to undertaking actions within the United States. Using the Navy to interdict shipping, to try to discover drugs coming into the country, or using the Army to find illegal aliens and to round them up and ship them out. So his references to the military are really only in the focus of domestic American problems. It's not in the context of the international order. And so I ask myself, where does this go? What does this mean? Now, there's an old saying in American politics that a campaign platform is like a platform to get into the train. You stand on it to get in, but you don't ride on it, okay? And so is he really going to use that platform as a guide for his work, or is he going to just not look back and then govern, when things come up? I don't know. I think it would be a mistake to think that President Trump is not going to anchor himself around the ideas that were in his platform, and it's a very America-centric approach. There's remarkably little about alliances and partnerships around the world. There's one reference to supporting sovereign governments in Asia. I think that probably was a code word for Taiwan, but Taiwan is not mentioned. So we have a very confusing landscape as we look at this. And one that I'll just I've devoted 45 years of my life to strengthening the Japanese-US alliance and providing security through Asia, through this partnership. And it's my whole life. And I'll be honest, I'm worried. I'm somewhat worried about that. But I do think that there will be factors that will modulate President Trump's impulses at this stage. The first is going to be the business community. President Trump has been very vocal that he's going to slap 60% tariffs on goods manufactured in China, 10% on everybody else. I don't think he's heard yet from the business community about what that means for inflation, what that means for supply chains, what that means for, I think his view is that you put 60% tariffs and that means every company is going to move back to the United States. And I don't think that's the case. I do think it means prices are going to be higher. And because of that, I don't know that we've seen the real implication of it yet. I also think he hasn't really interacted with and heard from allies. And I think that voice is yet to come to the table. And I'm very hopeful that the very strong posture that we have with here in Japan, have in Korea, have in Australia, other countries, especially in Asia, that this will be a modifying influence in his sentiment. And I think also that probably doesn't appreciate the depth of connections that we have built with each other over the last 30 years, 40 years. My best friends now are Japanese. I wouldn't have said that 40 years ago. And I think you'd find that very common among Americans that have experienced this remarkable culture and the partnership that's been developed. So even though these are somewhat confusing days, I'm not pessimistic about our future because I know the strength of Japan. I know the strength of our alliance together. I know the importance of the values that we share together. We're going to have to stand up for those values. We'll have to speak up for them. And that's the reason, more than anything, why I wanted to come here and be with all of you today. Again, my sincere thanks to Nikkei. Hasabe-san, thank you for your leadership. We've greatly enjoyed this partnership, and I look forward to doing this for very many years to come. Thank you very much for listening to me.
ハミレ社長、ありがとう。
Dr. Hamre, thank you very much.